We'll call the December 21st, 17 Airport Commission to order. Roll call.
Neil Johnson.
Here.
Greg Collier.
Here.
Andrew Barker.
Here.
Joel Gardner.
Here.
Steve Smith.
Here.
Bill Schoonover.
Here.
Greg Willoughby.
Here.
Minutes are not here today, so we'll move on to next month for that. Comments from the audience? No update for the year or anything from the,
Suzanne, thank you for
Suzanne.
the package.
yeah.
Yeah,
But she
thank
she always,
Takes good care of us, doesn't she?
yeah, takes care of it. I
Everybody
thought
but
you'd
me.
have a
Everybody but
recap.
Andrew.
Could you come up here and let everybody thank you for?
Because I told her I wasn't gonna be here.
That's what, okay, well, I would like to thank you for your attendance and for the airport. We've not heard any complaints about you this year out there, so that's good. Everything went pretty smooth, I think, except for tearing up a couple airplanes with hangar doors. But I think we got that worked out, didn't we? Hadn't heard any complaints about hot offices. I think we got that solved. Everybody's happy with our renovations. So, anything else we can brag about for the year?
Might have a really good restaurant.
I think that
Getting
may
close.
be true. We hope it is.
I guess we can brag on that on 18.
Yeah. Let's support them any way we can. And
Well, while you mentioned that, I think it'd be a good idea to have our January meeting there, have lunch and then have our meeting there. Is support the restaurant if they're open, be
When
the
they get it
third week.
wide open,
When
have
they
a
get it
meeting.
open and show our support and then have our meeting there at the airport.
I concur.
what, you want to do it in January or give them a little time to get established? I mean,
I'd say
Well,
do it in January.
I'd say do it in January.
Once they get established, we may not be able to squeeze in.
hey, hopefully.
Make a
well,
reservation.
Let's just move it.
Let's
to-
do it in January.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yes. I know we're getting cart before the horse a little bit, but I've been excited about the last year, and certainly it seemed to run fairly smooth. We've had good attendance with the commission and everything, so I appreciate it anyway.
I think it's run so smooth that Neil Johnson, I think we ought to nominate you for president again.
Second.
Before we get into that,
Poor Neil.
I've given this a lot of thought, and I really believe I would take it another year. My goal, when I talked to you last year, I said I would only take it because I still wanted to see this project through up here. We are so close to that. And we're going to be talking about that today. Wyman's got some information on it and everything. But I certainly appreciate the confidence and everything. But there is one thing that Rose called my attention. Last year, when we elected officers, we just elected them leave them stand as they were. Greg happened to carry double duty, and everybody overlooked that. So we may want to go ahead and go a one-on-one on that with the chairman and then the vice chairman and then the secretary. Greg is filling both of those positions, vice chair and secretary. So, and that just was kind of an oversight because he filled in for Micah. He just took that role from Micah Thompson when he left to serve out that term, and then we would elect he was vice chairman, wasn't he? And you took that role. You were secretary. That's the way it was. So I would ask that anyone else, no one in the audience. I just took that role as a member of the audience to make the statement that I made. So nothing official. So that being said, we'll move on with election of officers, and we'll just start with the chairman, if that's good with you guys, and we'll do it individually. So we'll hear any nominations.
I think we did. We got a second.
Anybody else? Not, then we'll just have a voice vote. Yeah, let's do it that way. Go ahead and have a roll call.
You want a roll call?
Sure.
Collier,
Yes.
Barker,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Willoughby,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Let's go to vice chairman. As again, we talked, Greg is holding both of those positions. Do you have any desire to stay in on one of them?
Sure.
Both, okay. So
Lewis?
let's,
I move that Greg be our vice.
got Greg as vice chairman. Anyone?
I'll second it.
Got a second? Let's go, let's roll call it again.
Barker,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Willoughby,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Now let's go to a secretary, and I'm sure that, I don't think Greg wants both of them, so here are any nominations for secretary, here are any volunteers.
I move Andrew.
Second that.
All right,
I'll take it. That's fine.
anybody else? If not, let's roll call that one also.
Gardner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Willoughby,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Barker.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I guess.
I want to say that moving forward into next year, that I certainly think there'll be a lot, we've still got a little work to do on the restaurant that we'll be talking about here a little later. And, but on this property, again, we're so close down there. I think I would like to talk about that, move that forward a little bit since we've already mentioned it, the number 9. I'd like to move that over and come back and check with the operations report. So Wyman, where are we at on the appraisals? And we have some numbers to look at, I guess.
Got all the appraisals in from Reed and Associates, and the next step is to have a reviewer review them under FAA guidelines to see if he agrees with the method and the work that he did. Contacted the reviewer that we used the last time we acquired property, which is a Little Rock firm, and sent him a copy of the appraisals to look at, and he gave us a rough quote that you've got in your packet.
Yeah. I was looking at that total.
So all I need is your say-so to go ahead and have him do the review.
So we make a motion to.
He's already got a copy of the appraisals. We just have to tell him to go ahead with the work to, he'll go in and analyze each comparison that Reed used to make sure he agrees with the method and the results of the appraisal.
Could you tell me why the word range is in that rather than a firm price?
The what? Oh, well, if he discovers something in the appraisal that he feels like is wrong, it could cause additional work to come up with and document what he recommends to change.
It requires a second, but my question is, the verbiage here, the range of $12,000.
Does that mean the total appraisal within $12,000?
All the
What it
properties.
says is this, it's actually, it's a pretty solid fee, but it's also allowing for a movement of that number.
Two parcels.
Yeah, I guess he could argue saying he might go backward, but I doubt that happening. What's your assessment of that, Wyman?
We only had him do 2 properties before, and he was reasonable. Both the other times, one of the properties, he did come up with some suggestions that were rechanged in the appraisal. So I don't have any idea whether he'll find anything like that in these or not. But he's well respected in the review process.
Okay. That was all I had on that. I was just, it is not a firm price is what I was getting at.
Or 8. So why
That's
is that a
enough if we
separate
said
piece?
not to exceed 12,000?
I could ask him for a not to exceed.
Well,
Or you can approve a not to exceed, and then I can present it back to him like that. The airport commission approved it not to exceed this amount if you agree.
and that's kind of rough on him too, because as Wyman said that, you know, there could be something wrong with first appraisal. So here's my thoughts on it. If there's something that needs to be reworked, why would that not fall back to the first appraiser and get him to assess it and see if the guys. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we could gauge in the event of a cost increase on the appraisal, something that would tell us it was reasonable or not.
Question on the property plat layout on page 9. There's one very small square that's number 6, and then a very elongated piece with the house on it and shed. Is that all number 6?
Yes.
And then on page
There
10.
was one that was combined.
Yeah, it just looks a little bit weird because there's no number on that
Right.
one piece.
And then on page 10, we have
I was going to 5, I'm sorry.
number 8 isolated in its own photograph. For what purpose?
Just because.
Okay.
Isn't that the ones that that he just finished? We had all of them
Thought so.
but
All of them
that.
but like one
Okay,
or
so
two
this
of them,
is
yeah.
just,
So this is what,
His latest.
the latest, which brought it up to a
Okay.
total of $1 million.
very good. Okay.
I thought we were talking about the big, which is 5, but
Oh, we were talking about number 6. It's just a little bit weird. When you look at the value, it has to be those two pieces
Combined.
combined. Okay. And also on number 7, quick question, I'm sure that I'm not just crazy here. Number 7's the large piece out by Emma plus the small piece that's back behind, is that correct? Those are both 447s? Okay, just making sure there. Some weird subdivision of that original chunk of land there.
we did have a call on 8 wanting to know what it's appraised for. And I don't know if he ever followed up with Wyman or not, but
He never did contact me.
I,
He never did contact me.
so my response was, I couldn't talk to him about it.
Right.
And whether that information could be made available to him, I wasn't the one to answer that question. And I referred him to Wyman. In fact, I talked to Wyman about it, and Wyman indicated he could give it to him. He is certainly entitled to look at it, but we weren't going to discuss anything about it as far
Right.
as, 'cause
Right.
we can't get caught going out there and trying to negotiate this.
Well, we're not to that point.
So that's the only comments we really had, which is surprising out of all of these. But we're back to this appraisal, this regular. I would love to see some way that in the event that we have a change in that, from that 12,000, we had some sort of a review process just to justify it. And we would, at that time, in other words, instead of getting a bill at the end of the day for 13,000, we would need to have something written into the contract that we would be notified prior to that expenditure, and we would be able to,
We could word it that he'd have to contact us to get permission before he exceeds 12,000 if he runs into something.
then that would protect everybody.
He could explain why he's going over, and we'd have the option to say yes or no.
I would wonder, is there a particular sequence that he's going to do these that we would want to put in there? For example, which piece of this would be the least valuable to us, appraise last, if you're going to keep the cost down, or, you know what I'm saying? So, obviously, number 5 and 4 that join us are the
4, 5,
most
and
valuable,
6,
most
yeah.
valuable to us.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6, in my opinion,
Yeah,
are
so
definitely the most.
these properties that are most valuable to us should should be appraised first.
I think that will come out whenever we're able to take a number to these property owners.
Well,
Just
what
if-
I'm saying is, I'm talking about the appraiser here. We're talking about limiting his cost. Isn't that what we're doing? $12,000 you're talking about?
It's just a review of the initial appraisal,
Right,
which is a
but I-
requirement of FAA.
I understand that, but that's based on all 8 properties?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if he's going to exceed $12,000, we could say, well, don't exclude number 8. Can we do that?
Are we expecting him to exceed 12,000 on the review? I mean, that's probably,
I'm saying is the least valuable, if we want to keep the cost down, he's going to charge per whatever,
But
one he
for the
approaches
FAA
at.
For the FAA, you got to have the whole thing.
And we elected to go for all of them.
Oh, okay, okay.
okay, so we're gonna do it anyway.
So that's a moot point.
I'm just trying to make the point that if we get a bill, he's talking $12,000. If we get a bill for $12,500, or we get a bill for $13,000 at the end of this, and with no warning, with no justification for it, then I don't think we should put ourselves out there with that risk. So if we could just make it to where the motion would be, we accept this,
Wyman, how was you wording that?
That the airport commission's approved up to $12,000, that if the amount is, if it's determined that the amount is going to exceed that, then he's to halt work and document the reason why he feels like it's going to exceed that, and we present that to the airport commission for their approval for him to continue.
That, or we could say plus 10%, or not to exceed 10%, or,
well, you're giving him 10% when you
that's
do it.
right, he's going to do it then.
For sure. I'd say cap it at 12 and,
Okay, I make that motion.
Have you got it, Rose?
Not all of it, but I will.
I don't know if I could word that again.
No, he'll have one tape. I'll get it from him.
I'll second it.
You got a second? So the motion is we're going to agree to the $12,000 with prior notice of any changes that would exceed $12,000 so as to have an opportunity to discuss it and the justification of it.
Prior to him continuing the work.
Right. Well, I think this will come up during his review.
But one of the problems that you get into, though, is if you do that and you stop him at $12,000 and you decide that you don't agree with his justification, you got to start all over again.
He's
You
not
gotta
going to go
find
through the
somebody
process.
else.
12.
He's not
Put
going
that
to
in
go through
there.
the process for a couple $100.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be something egregious, and it would be worth setting it down if that's the case,
Yeah, no,
I
he's-
think.
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I think we're good with this motion. Everybody understand the motion second? Any other discussion? Roll call?
Smith,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Willoughby,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Barker,
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, go back to the operation report, James.
The signs are up down on 412 now, so we set the post, got the plywood painted, they're up, look good. I spoke with Jeff Mann Monday, and he's just gonna go ahead and plan on sprinkling his hangar. So he's gonna go back through large-scale development, and hopefully he'll be done and ready to break ground. So
Could
that's
we,
what-
sorry, but could we paint those posts green, to kind of blend in with the grass, but they not standing out?
Well, I was waiting for him to cure out since they're paint them next year.
I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
you're fine. So Jeff Mann should be getting through large-scale development, because that was what was holding him up, was the sprinkler of his hangar. So hopefully he'll be breaking ground real fast. Start getting that hangar built. Dee's sign showed up yesterday or today and put the plates on the legs of the sign, put the photo cell on it, and replaced the bent sheet. So our entrance sign is now complete. So that's all done. And also on our sign that was tore on the fence, he didn't bill us for the new one, so it was tore so bad I didn't want to put it up.
Right.
So he made us a new one, didn't bill us for it.
Same design, are they the ones that did that?
Did the same one that tore.
Good.
Yesterday, I met with Walt at Air Resources, Mike in the tower, and then the fire battalion chief. They want to do a roundtable, sit down and do a discussion on a what-if incident happened, and then sometime in 2018, go out and do a practice on the field.
Like we did before.
Right.
I'm for that.
So that's in the works. So when we do the roundtable sit-down discussion, we'll have PD in there as well, and then set up a date for on the tarmac reenactment. And Walt said if nobody else would do it, I'm sure Ms. Hunt would allow us to use her aircraft to, use that what-if scenario. So that way, at least it'll get our fire department trained for aircraft incidents.
We can do it with a smaller airplane.
Good.
Certainly. We used mine, the one we did before, and 2 months after we did it, my airplane was in the air with with what we simulated. We had to do it again, for real. It happened.
I'm not riding with you.
Huh? I know, but it happened. It was crazy, but it did. And it was a real thing. It was about $80,000 damage. So.
And Jonathan Rose with Afterglow Detailing, he's renting one of our offices and hangar up on Powell Street. What he's wanting to do is have us buy the material and him provide all the labor to go ahead and finish out that second office with a year's rent free, which is $4,200. And after that, rent both offices in the hangar. Start paying rent after a year.
Not pay rent on either side?
No, just the one office they're going to be finishing out. But he wants us to buy the material, and they'll do all the labor.
So that estimate that was sent out the other day, 99.
That was what we
or
paid
something
to
like
finish
that.
out the first office.
That what?
That's what it cost to finish out the first office.
I called Randy Evans on that and asked him about it, and he said he just kind of threw those numbers together for him to get a ballpark price. I don't know, the numbers don't seem to work out in my mind from a labor standpoint to giving him a full year's free rent. It seems like we're losing on the deal to me.
I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
That's why I told him he could come to the commission and y'all can do whatever y'all wanted with it.
I ran the numbers on the build out for square footage on it, and you're looking at about $7,000 to do it.
He's wanting us to pay for the materials, right?
I don't remember what was the cost on the materials.
Well, it's not broken out.
He didn't break it down.
Yeah, I think we have to have real numbers
I think you ought to come present it
before we can
personally.
make a decision, because $4,200 for labor, if it's going to be $2,400, you know what I'm saying? I just
Well,
think
what
we
you're
need-
getting out of that 4,200, and James, go ahead and add to what I'm gonna say. I may not get it all, but you're getting the labor to install the grid and in the ceiling. You're getting, and the acoustic, you're getting
electrical work.
the labor for the floor. You're
Electrical
getting-
was included in that number though, too.
and
Far off, honestly.
he was gonna provide the electrical.
It was in that 99.
Oh, no, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's including this, the build-out, what's the estimated build-out cost should be around $7,775.
What do you think? Factoring out materials, what?
Well, we haven't done that, but I was just telling you what he was offering you're talking about a cost of $7,000 to $7,500. Now, if you had a contractor go in there, he's gonna pop some on that, it's gonna run up to about the 9,000 somewhere. But that's what the cost should be. And that would include every turnkey. And what I was trying to break out in my mind, justify in my mind, was what are we getting for the 4,200? And what we're getting is the labor only for putting in the ceiling, for laying the floors, for finishing the sheetrock. I guess hanging and finishing, right?
Yep.
Hanging, finish sheetrock, and to do whatever is necessary to finish out the bathroom as far as labor, so that will require a plumber. He was gonna pay for the plumber, is that right?
I'm an electrician.
He's gonna pay for the plumbing and electrician. So,
Our cost is just, as I understand it, just materials.
Yes.
Everything that requires to do it they will do except materials.
He's throwing in, if he's paying for all the electrical and the plumbing, and he's not that far off.
Probably not very far off, honestly.
Better than it sitting there not rented.
Well, I was going to say, there's a certain cost to not having it rented, too.
Well, James and I discussed that, you
No
know.
doubt about that.
We can take a little hit just to get it rented,
Yeah,
because we haven't got any revenue right now.
right.
So,
And he's paying us $750 a month right now for office and hangar right there.
I would say if he's paying electrical and plumbing,
Like more than what we got. That quick estimate that Evans Construction did, I'd like something a little more detailed than that before we,
Well, that's just what it cost when we built that other office out. The city paid for that. Profit was in there.
Okay, so that was our actual cost
This was
on,
our actual cost on that first office.
on a previous one, okay.
How much of the work is Jonathan Rose going to do himself compared to subbing it out? Is he qualified, and how much of it would he do himself?
well,
Has,
the
couple
only
of guys on
licensed
his
people that's
staff.
gonna be required in there is the electrical and the plumbing. The rest of it
Do we care?
knows who's gonna do the
I mean, if it
drywall
passes
finish and stuff.
the inspection,
Yeah, there's inspections on all of it, but, and then I don't see him going in there and doing a sloppy job on the work that they're gonna do.
that wouldn't be very beneficial for the relationship.
Are any permits required to be pulled for this? Building permits?
Pardon me?
Any building permits required for this?
Well, there's a build out that will be, yeah, because you got plumbing and electrical involved.
So who's gonna pay for the permit fees?
I'm assuming he will, if he's taking on the role of the builder.
All we're
He's the
paying
one
for
doing
is
the work, so.
He
materials.
said all, he
Okay,
said
well,
only material, yeah.
because it's
It doesn't even
labor
make it
on
clear.
one side, materials on the other side, there's permit fees in the middle, who's paying for those? And with the permit fees come the inspector, and if the inspector.
Well, here's what's
doesn't
gonna
think about
happen,
it,
he's gonna have to go in to the building inspector's office and provide them with an estimated cost. We're saying $7,500, something like that. That's the cost. And he's gonna pay for a building permit based on that. Now, they will take out the estimated electrical and plumbing on that. And then the plumber and electrician has to go in there and acquire the permit. And each one of those will be inspected. And then, once, he'll have an installation inspection, and then he'll have, a final after that. They put the drywall on it, trim it out, get it all going, and then the next inspection, just a final, see if everything's working, check the breakers and things of this nature. So, that will go automatically without anything we would suggest or need to suggest, or even need to be involved in. But to answer your question, are we gonna pay for the permit? I think we will address that on the contract. That we'll have to draw up some sort of agreement with it.
Agreed, we need a contract.
When is he needing an answer on this?
Whenever y'all's ready.
He's wait another month, or what's he?
He's already in the hangar and in the other office, so he's already doing his job. He just wants extra space.
So let's get a contract draft.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get a vote on it
I
today.
think our commitment should be for materials only.
well, but I think we need a cap on
What he
that. I
asked
think we just
for.
need to
Yeah.
say materials only, maybe materials only with a limit of
At X price.
$5,000 or
Yeah.
whatever.
What we need to do then, prior to even voting on it, I guess, would be to go and have those materials identified. And he can compile that, we can check it out, on it. There you go, if you're breaking it out like I would do it in my business, if I was looking at it, I would say we've probably got $3,000 to $4,000 worth of material there, somewhere, and that may be, I don't know, that's just a guesstimate, and it's,
Yeah, but start looking at,
we certainly don't want to put $10,000 worth of
Start
material.
looking
We
at
don't
it, though, I
want to
mean-
put granite countertops in there.
yeah. Exactly, I think we do need to
mean,
put a
you know,
cap.
It's just a freestanding sink in the other one, so there's no counter whatsoever.
I'm just saying, if we were just open end and say, yeah, do it,
Yeah.
and we're gonna pay for the materials, he could make but I don't think he would,
No,
but that's why you need the
well, we need to
contract
put
and you
some
need a
sort of
materials
cap on it,
list.
like Greg said,
Well,
definitely.
why doesn't he just gather up all the stuff and submit us
Put in there,
Pro package,
materials subject to
how much
his
materials
approval.
are and how much he's expecting for these other things, and we can vote on it next meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like
Looking
to
at
see
it
him
that
put his
way, just
materials
ask him
package
to
together,
compile a
So
list
we know what we're buying.
of what he's gonna need to finish it and bring it to
He
us.
can say, okay, the materials are gonna cost us $4,500, then we can say yes or no.
Yeah,
I look at what he's putting in there.
yeah.
Is he long-term or short-term, or is he month-to-month? What's,
He's been on the field forever.
yeah, I know, I just didn't know if you had it.
He's out of space, so he's
He's
wanting more and
wanting
more
to grow his
space.
business.
Well, no,
I
but
mean-
what is he on a 5-year lease, a 2-year, or is he month?
No, we're annual leases, all
I
of
think
ours
he's on
are,
1
which
year. Yeah, that's
month
right.
to month anyway.
And in this contract for services, I would also like to see a start and end date. Because otherwise, if he just fiddles away at it, he could not be done with construction until this time next year. And then we start our free year in 2019.
Well, we could put a
year
date
on
of the free year on it.
I think,
Yeah.
I
Start when we
think
start
that
the
when he
contract.
begins to
Time the
occupy.
contract starts, the year's up after that.
Well, yeah, he would be taking, yeah. Greg made a good point. He's taking possession of it the day he starts. That's
right.
That's when his year would start.
That's right.
When he starts building, he's occupied.
Very good.
But it should say that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we're discussing this, but it should be all on paper.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's taking possession to do the modification, so he is basically controlling the property at that point.
Yeah.
Well, then, all we need to do today is just agree in concept of what's gonna take place, and then we'll work the details out to see if we're gonna agree to them later. Would that
Yep,
be
yep.
fair to say?
Just have him gather up all the numbers, invite him to the next meeting.
I like that idea.
Very good.
So what's your pleasure on agreeing with the concept?
I move we agree to
Here a second?
Second.
the concept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At least we get that out of the way. You can go talk to him, James, and you know what,
Yep.
tell him. You have anything else?
Just on our hangar rent, we have a couple of late people, and Gary Howard's backed about $5,000. Someone talk to Sarah tomorrow, see where she's at. I'll have a report for you next month on Mr. Howard.
Did we ever get a follow-up from the last time she came? I don't remember it.
Are there people on the waiting list that would be looking at his hangars? I mean, we're the point where we need to move on this, you know.
It's perpetual. It's always.
I think if we have somebody else that's waiting in the wings for it, then we need to try to push it along.
Oh, yeah, we've got people waiting.
Yeah, let's get aggressive on it.
Yeah, I think, I believe then we should, if there's people that are willing to occupy that space and pay rent, we shouldn't be chasing him. I think, we should give him a notice of if he's not current within 60 days,
Hard line.
then we're going to see about asking him to leave so we can get somebody reliable in there.
What are our terms of notification on is it 30-day? What sort of notification do we have to give a tenant? They need to be gone.
Lease,
Basically 30 days.
except on the restaurant, I think we had a 60-day notice on it.
I think that's right.
I know it's kind of a tight timeline, but I'd like to see something come out next week that gives him till the end of January and
I
have
agree.
an
Just make
ultimatum
an
by
effort.
then.
An effort even would be.
Word's probably getting around, we're pretty weak on enforcing this, and we may need to
Yeah.
change that method somewhat, and firm them up a little bit. There'll be no more business as usual. That, I think, just get rid of it early, not good. Because these people just keep stretching out. I have the same thing and with renters, and so it is a challenge. There's no real answer, but we could get more firm with them.
Well, the problem is, his indebtedness to us, it keeps growing.
Right.
And the longer he's there,
Our gross-
and then if he
our
decides
gross,
to
yeah.
leave, then or not do it, then we're gonna have to litigation, go after him, and it's gonna cost us money, and you just don't want that indebtedness to get out of hand.
We may take a hit right now, but I think we need to do it.
So,
So you're asking for her to come back next month? Okay.
In the meantime, can she go ahead and prepare a legal notification that,
She's already on top of it, so yeah, we need to let her know what's coming down the pike.
I think by the 1st of February, we should have some, I think we should be current by the 1st of February.
Or out.
I think he was on our list last time anyway, that she was,
And he's been turned over to her for a couple of months now.
So he's had adequate notice because she's been pursuing him, so I think if he's not current or made a substantial effort to become current, and we agree, I think, we'll give him till the 1st of February.
I think if you actually leave that language in there, making substantial effort to become current, it's either got to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Because while I made substantial effort and all I could afford was $100,
Well, substantial is widely defined.
that's the problem. That's the problem. It is either be current on January 30th or be out on February 1st because the keys are being changed, or the locks are being changed. An eviction. That's what I would move for.
Making a motion?
I make a motion that we give him till January 30th to become current or be evicted. Yes, sir.
you're saying just him or anyone?
I say that's the way, well, not everybody needs to be out by January 30th, but when somebody's this grossly past due, and we've been carrying them for how many months now?
Maybe word it to where when someone gets 60 days late, they have 30 days to get current, or
Very good.
Got multiple properties. If we give him a notice, he might get current on one or two and try to hold on to those. I'd say if we're gonna give him a notice, say he's gotta be current on all of them to
Yes.
retain all of them.
absolutely.
That's all of them.
And I think we're dealing with him specifically right now.
I
Not
agree
a
with that.
policy, we're dealing with an
Yeah.
issue,
This doesn't
not a
seem to be an
policy.
overreaching
We can
problem.
deal with the policy later, but right now
Right.
we're dealing with the specific.
I think you're safer if you take it on a case-by-case
Yeah,
basis.
yeah, I do too. So,
Yes.
I'd say he's gotta be current on all of them to retain any of them.
Yes, sir, 100% current. That's my motion, 100% current.
Second?
I second it.
Or anybody have anything else on it? If not, it's roll call.
Schoonover,
Yes,
Willoughby,
yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier,
yes.
Barker,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Smith.
Okay, Wyman's got a couple items. We let him take them by which order, whatever order he wants to take on this, about the airport activity report and the restaurant status.
The operations, we had 9 months in a row that we exceeded the last 4 or 5 years. Then we dropped down this month, but we're still at the top of the operations compared to the others. But we had 9 months that we exceeded by a wide margin the operations. So the activities,
Does that have anything to do with the Razorback football season?
I think you
We
can
have
pretty
a
well
season
predict the
this year?
season by looking at the operations.
Do what?
I think you can see the football season in the operation, or
I know the ramp wasn't as full on game day as it
That
used
was all
to
the
be.
planes leaving. People wanted out of town.
We've got new hope.
Yeah.
you've got your financial report with the balance sheet included in it that shows we've still got a strong cash balance, or strong for us anyway. We ran into a little issue with the restaurant in that the fire marshal said the vent hood did not meet code and it would have to be replaced before we opened. Well, the vent hood is part of the physical structure and it belongs to us.
The one thing we own in there.
And I told James we couldn't hold up, that we needed to go ahead and order one and have it on the way, but it is gonna run us probably 15, 16,000, counting installation and everything else.
Was that inspected when Bill took it over?
Yeah,
we knew it was a problem.
I remember it being a problem. I just wondered if it passed then. Apparently it did.
it may have been Considering the equipment that he had underneath it, and then different fire marshal may not have looked as in-depth as what this one looked at, because part of the issue was the type of material used for the ductwork for the exhaust.
Something with makeup air?
That-
Well, I'll say this, Wyman called
Piping
me
has to be welded
and
solid.
informed me
when
what
cut.
he's
Yep.
doing, and due to time restraints and everything, I said, I'm for it, and I would suggest doing it, and I'll inform the commission of it, see what they think about it. So that's where we're at today.
We have to do that. Let's make sure we get one with makeup air,
Huh?
so we're not sucking all
Gotta do
the
it,
AC
yeah.
out of the building again.
It is.
Well, they have to turn the makeup air on for it to do its job, but
They've got concrete pad poured and put their smoker on it on the south
Saw
side
that.
of the building.
they've got the smoker sitting there now. I saw it yesterday. It's sitting there.
Nice.
Pretty nice one.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked really good to me.
I think long-term, we're gonna be happy.
So I'm sure everyone's good with following up and doing what are, it's more or less maintenance too, you know, that comes under those headings, so. I don't know if it requires anything beyond that.
So is there an actual set opening date? Or is everything reliant on the vent hood?
They were hoping first of the year, but I'm not sure the vent hood will be installed by then. Gonna do our best.
Gotta have it done by the third Thursday. We're in.
Right,
Yes, that's my point.
that's what, yeah.
Put a Weber outside.
We were all standing around the smoker, keeping our hands
Well,
warm, right?
at least you all gave them a vote of confidence they could do it by setting a meeting up there. So, we might tell them that.
Probably let them know.
Plan on it?
Oh,
And they want to deliver it here.
Yeah.
anything else on the restaurant? If not, Adam, you got anything for us?
Got a few things. Take one pass down.
Oh, no.
I got some project updates for you today. We'll start with the Pappy project. We met with the contractor. He's actually doing another project for us in Central Arkansas. We met with him a couple weeks ago. Last time I talked to you, we were shooting for a Jan 1 start date for 10 night closures. What he has told us, and we concurred with, and I talked to James about, was he thinks he can do that in half the time if he casts his foundations at a shop, cures them out, and then just hauls them up here and puts them in the ground. We all like that idea, so taking it from 10 night closures to 4 or 5 night closures, if that. So we concur with that. So he's going to start casting 1st of January, and right now we have a pre-con start date scheduled for February the 5th for him to haul those up here, get them on site, and then it's a Monday. We'll start that night. Barring weather, if for some reason we see something happening the week ahead and there's winter weather coming or just poor weather in general, we'll just back it up a week and just work with Summit, make sure everybody knows what we're doing and when we're going to start. But all good things. I'm hoping with the precast foundations, it could even be as minimal as 2 or 3 night closures, because once you drop those things in the ground, you can do the rest of the work during the day. It's just the trenches that we have issues with, and so it was good to see that. So we'll be working with James and Suzanne as we get a little closer to that start date, making sure everybody's on the same page. All right. The other project, the FAA grant, is your runway pavement and lighting rehabilitation project. We've got the rest of our data back on the runway, so I can share some of that data with you. Starting with the existing pavement section, it is between 4 and 6 inches of asphalt, which was a little bit lighter than what we thought. We were hoping at least 6 inches everywhere. We do have some spots where it's closer to 4 inches. Below that is between 6 and 10 inches of your aggregate base course, your rock. And below that, we just have our natural subgrade. In some areas, other areas, we have engineered fill, which is just red dirt below the pavement section. Our subgrade strengths, we rate them as medium in some places, high in other places, which is actually fairly good. We were worried we may get into some really low areas where we'd be really worried, but everything was at least medium strength, so we felt pretty good about our subgrade strength, not going to have to do any full depth replacements anywhere. So now that we have that data, we've already had our fleet mix developed and touched up. what we found is the big thing is that we're gonna feel better getting a little bit more asphalt out there. Instead of just doing a mill and fill where we end up at the same elevation, we need to go up at least a couple inches. That's important from a timing standpoint. You think of like the work they're doing on the highway. When they do a mill and fill, they can close it overnight, mill it out, put it back in, and you got traffic on the next day. You can't just go up and then leave and have a bump in the runway, right? So it's going to require a big closure instead of a lot of small closures, is what that means. So that was important for us to know now, so we can start thinking about how those time frames work and start talking to you about the best time frames to shoot for to do that work. So let's talk about what that rehab plan is going to look like. Two aspects of the job. We have our pavement rehab, the runway, and then we have our lighting rehab, our lights, our signs, our vault. The pavement rehab, the first thing we're going to do is going to take care of the big cracks. We have about 1,500 linear feet of really wide cracks on the runway. I'm talking about an inch or more. Most of them run transverse, maybe for half the runway width. Some go all the way across the runway. Those aren't the kind of cracks you just overlay and then you expect them to never show up again. So for those cracks, we're going to do what we call a 2-inch mill and fill. Basically, you get a 1-foot bobcat mill head. You follow the crack for about 12 inches wide, mill down 2 inches. Whatever's left of that crack, which usually isn't that much, you fill with either grout or a rubberized sealant to keep the water from coming back up through it. And then you put 2 inches of asphalt right back in, end up at the same elevation. And then you overlay on top of that. So it puts the crack a lot further down. It goes from a 1-inch wide crack usually to more like a 1/4-inch wide crack once you get down a couple inches, and gives you a lot better product. We'll take care of all those cracks first. Then what we'll do, we will ignore all the other 1/2-inch or inch cracks, because what we'll do is we'll put what we call it a DBST, a double bituminous surface treatment, which think of it like 2 chip seals on top of the runway before we overlay. And that acts as our bond breaker between our existing pavement section and our new pavement section, so those cracks don't reflect up through our new pavement. We've used it at a couple runways in the area, recently at R.L. Jones in Tulsa, the reliever for Tulsa International, on their primary runway with a lot of success. And so we feel good about that, and our contractor community can do that. The other thing that allows us to do is, because we ignored those small cracks, we save time. Instead of having to go through them, remove all the sealant that's already in there and working pretty good, clean them out, reseal them, we just go right on top of them. And so we probably save a couple of days of work by doing that. It's a little more expensive, but the FAA's already bought off on the idea in principle. So we feel like it's the best approach for you. After we do our DBST, then we'll install the asphalt overlay. We're looking at between 2.5 inches right now, 2 or 2.5 inches of overlay. We're working with the FAA on what that number needs to be. Minimum of 2 inches, though, on top of that for our whole new surface course. And then after that, we'll do our markings as well. We'll carry all this work, not just on the runway extents, but all the way out to our hold lines on both sides of the runway, east and parallel taxiway, which will fix the bump on the midfield connector. We'll also do a little bit of work to fix that bump about 1,000 feet off the south end of the runway as well to knock that out. We're doing the runway work. So all that work, just on the runway pavement, we're looking at 14 working days to get that work done. That's what we've talked with some contractors, our internal staff, of, hey, lining all this up, knowing the money we have, the shifts that we can operate under, we're looking at 14 working days, not including weather on top of that if we run into any issues there, okay? Now, that's the pavement side. The lighting side is going to include all new LED light fixtures on the runway edge lights. We already have LED fixtures on the taxiways. We're just going to do the runways. We'll pull all new cabling for the whole runway circuit, which is about 12,000 feet of cabling through the existing cannon conduit areas. We always plan for some collapsed conduit along the way, so we had to take some allocation there for that. The biggest thing on the electrical side is going to be 30 to 35 new signs as part of this project. That's going to be all new runway exit signs, both sides of the runway, and all new hold line signs, both sides of the runway. We've already showed you the taxiway naming plan that we developed last month. We'll use that as a guide to do that. So all the new taxiways will get signs, with the exception of the one that we're going to demo during the project as well. Also on the lighting side, but not as critical as from a timing standpoint, would be a new vault building that's going to be located on the west side of the airport to get the power out of that T hangar bay and into its own building, and a new home run, which is just the ducts that run all the way to the runway, your primary circuits going to the runway. And that new vault will, of course, include the room for the expansion of the east parallel taxiway lighting system in the future. The lighting work that's going to be inside the safety area, we expect that to actually take 16 working days, and that's the signs. Those sign foundations with the housekeeping pads can't be prefabbed. They're too big to do that and to ship up here. They're going to be installed in place. And we're talking to a couple electrical subcontractors that do this type of work. Conservatively, they're looking at about 16 working days to get that job done. So that gives you an idea of the manpower we're going to look at to try to get the job done, which the last estimate from the FAA was about $2.8 million worth of work is what we expect it to be during that time frame. So how do you actually tackle the construction job? We see 4 parts of construction. First part, which we call Phase A, which I'm going to show you on the screen, and it's also the second page of your PDF, is all the work that we can do without affecting the runway operation. So it's going to include, I'm going to zoom in here, mobilizing on site. We'll use the big ramp up here for our staging area. The vault right now is planned to be just off the staging area, just to the west of the staging area in this location. If for some reason the FAA balks at that location, we would move it down here off the west edge of this last T hangar bay right here. So all that vault and home run all the way up to the taxiway can be built without affecting the airport's operations, day-to-day operations. If you remember from our conversations last week or last month, we're also going to take out a little bit of apron right here where my cursor is to eliminate the direct access route from the runway from the apron. That's a no-no right now in the FAA's mind. We'll take enough out to where you have to actually make a right turn or left turn to get to the runway from the apron. So we'll do that work right there. We'll put some barricades around the area. We'll still have access to and from the apron from both sides of the runway. It's just the work to demo that. We'll put some barricades up, probably no more than 7 days to get that work done and to fix the lights in that area. So all that work, home run, vault, probably 45 or so days to get that work done. That'll be done in advance of the closure. That way we get a little bit of efficiency. We're all used to the site. Before we close the runway down, we have our staging area complete. We have all materials delivered, ready to go once we shut the runway down, okay? Everything else that happens is going to happen when the runway is shut down. Let me see if I can zoom back out here and get to the next page. Okay. So this is our runway shutdown condition. From a hauling perspective, we will more than likely haul in from this gate right here on the southeast corner of the property because that gives us really quick access to the runway. We will haul out the opposite direction, empty down this taxi lane and out the Powell Street gate to keep our flow of traffic continuous and not have two-way traffic going in the same way. It works a little bit better if you can circulate that traffic in and out of the site. We are not going to use the gate to the north where the AWAS facility is and the glide slope because we don't want to have any issues with FAA kicking up dust, rocks on any of that equipment up there. So we're going to stay off to the south for all of our hauling operations. During this phase, we'll do all the work inside the runway, but we do it at different times. What we foresee is a weekend closure, probably about a month in advance of our actual main closure for the runway. And during that closure, we're going to do our asphalt test strip. With FAA jobs, you're required to test the asphalt on site, prove it works, prove that the contractor can lay it down to specifications before you jump out there and pave all the way down the runway. Just avoids an issue where you've paved a day's worth of work, which is 4,000 tons, and then you realize it didn't work out very well. And so we're going to do this well in advance of our closure. That way, if we have any issues, we can correct them and not be correcting them on site while the clock's running and the airport shut down. So a weekend closure to do that. One thing we've been talking to the contractor about doing to save time is also, since we're going to have asphalt on site, we're going to have our mill heads on site, take care with as much of that really bad cracking, that mill and fill work, we can while the runway shut down that previous weekend. That'll save time when the runway shut down. We'll probably even come back to you and think about, if we make it a 3-day closure instead of a 2-day closure, maybe we save another day and a half when the runway shut down. But that'll probably be a January conversation. It's just something we're kicking around right now. So we do that closure work about a month in advance of our primary closure. Then we'll close down for our primary closure. Again, probably somewhere between 14 and 16 days, depending on what we can do to work through the issues and depending on what time frame we select to do the work. We'll reopen the runway once all that work's done in a temporary paint condition, meaning the paint will be down but no reflective beads in it yet. We have to let the pavement cure 30 days before we can put the reflective beads down. And then 30 days after the closure, we'll come back for a weekend closure to do the final pavement markings that have the reflective beads in it, and then we'll be done. So going to be a few different mobilizations, a lot of work in a short amount of time, but we've done this before, and we can do it again successfully. Now, overall schedule, when's all this going to take place? So right now we're designing the project. We will bid the project early summer 2018, so this coming year. We would expect the grant to be executed in the fall timeframe, probably August to September of next year, just knowing the FAA's processes. And then we'll be ready to start construction once the grant's executed. Obviously, though, with the timing and with some of the lead times we'll have to do, we won't want to be starting in November, December timeframe. We will push that until the spring, summer of 2019, which will be very clear in the bid documents, the plan moving forward to make sure that those prices don't change on you after you bid the job. And that's really where I think we get to a few things that we should consider as a group, or we should consider with the pilot community, which is when's the best time frame to shoot for to do the primary closure. As an engineer from a weather standpoint, I know that May, June, July, August are really good weather months for construction, but I also know they're really busy months for traffic. And so it becomes a game of, do you shoot for summer months, shrink the closure because your weather liability goes down, knowing you're going to affect more traffic, or do you shoot for spring months? Your closure may widen a little bit because you're going to have more rain concerns, but you may not affect as much traffic because it's not as heavy at that time. So that's one thing to think about. And again, we're not here to make decisions today. We're just here to talk about it, and we'll probably look at making some decisions next month. That's one thing to think about. Another item to consider would be, do we want to take this opportunity to groove the runway? I know some of y'all have probably been on other airports that have grooved runways. Up here, I know Fayetteville's grooved, and Rogers is now grooved. XNA is obviously grooved. There are definitely some advantages from a pilot standpoint on when you can get in and out. If the runway's grooved, there's some advantages on what chart you look at when the runway's grooved and what you can land on. And I'm not a pilot, but I know enough about it to know it can affect things. Now, is it worth doing? And will it affect your operation enough to pay the $100,000 to do it? And probably an additional 7 to 8 night closures after the runway's paved to do it. That's where I think it's going to be something we want to discuss with, again, you all, and then the pilot community, really more the bigger planes that would be affected by a grooved runway. Is this something that's could even affect them, or they would even look at as being a good thing for them? So that's my update today. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Not looking for any direction today. Just wanted to give you the information to open a discussion probably coming in January.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions? We certainly got time to be thinking about a lot of this, so.
Just one of the things on the grooving, how does that affect the maintenance and care of the runway? Because you get water in there and freezing and thawing and maintenance and additional costs.
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple things. Let's talk about winter weather operations. It's good in the sense that that runway is going to typically thaw a lot faster because you're typically going to have some air in between the grooves, and it will help that black asphalt thaw what's underneath. However, it's also a negative in that you can't just hammer the runway with a steel blade anymore because you're going to pop every groove and just have pop-outs and chunks of asphalt going everywhere. So you got to change your operation to probably either a rubber or a poly blade, which are more expensive. That's one issue. From a pavement maintenance standpoint, we really don't see a whole lot of difference as far as the pavement life, a groove surface versus a non-groove surface. Where it can really come into play, though, is it affects your ability to do like a sill coat in the future. Really, the next time you know, 5-10 years down the road when you want to do a sill coat, a lot of airports just stop showing their runways grooved because they can't guarantee those grooves are still as effective as they were before the sill coat. Because that sill coat's going to fall into some of the grooves, and then you don't have that same thing. Because really, the grooves are there not for a micro texture thing. They're really just to get water off the runway. You know, they're not going to really help you a whole lot on a dry day. What help you is when it's raining, you don't see water on the surface anymore.
It's an accelerate stop and a
Yes.
performance issue.
It is a performance issue.
All about braking.
Yeah,
Braking
it's all about braking.
and acceleration.
That's not from the tires. Well, you have
You've
additional
got
track
if you've got
potentially.
ponding, it's a
You've got potential, but
Yeah.
mostly about braking, for sure.
But that's where, I mean,
So
I think...
grooving's good for 5 years, basically.
Yeah, the groove is good for 5 years. I mean, are there actually advantages to it after that? Yes, in reality. From a liability standpoint, I wouldn't probably put it on a chart, though. Because when there's a crash on a groove runway, the first thing that insurance company does is they come out there with their little measuring tool to see how deep those grooves are and if they meet the FAA specification.
Do we lose any airport operations because of a lack of grooves?
That would be a great question, I think, to talk to the pilot community about. Maybe Suzanne could help in that.
I mean, it's a $100,000 investment. If we're getting a,
$20,000 a year if it's only good for 5 years.
yeah.
I mean,
Do
realistically.
we get $20,000 do we lose $20,000 worth of business each year because it's done?
I've never heard anybody.
Dated.
I don't know if Suzanne has.
I think that our runway length is kind of it's defined, obviously, and I don't think we're really close to any aircraft's required distances
For grouping.
for just, if we lose braking,
Okay.
you know, lose some braking for these guys, are they still safe? That's why they have minimum runway lengths. So I mean, obviously, this is not a full discussion for today, but it has benefit. I mean,
But
it
grooves
does.
grooves are cool, but
Sure.
do we get anything from spending $100,000?
They really benefit major airports with heavy airline traffic and stuff. It's got to have some braking.
Land in Big Iron, then absolutely, they're really
I
important.
don't think we're going to be coming up to that requirement.
And I'll say this, you know, you're kind of on that borderline. The FAA language, it's kind of silly. It says it recommends grooving on runways for any airport that has any turbojet traffic, which is just about every airport in the country. So we don't really look at that as a hard line, but it is a discussion point. And what we'll need from y'all probably in January is, hey, what direction do you want us to go to the FAA with? The FAA may come back and say, don't care what you think. We're going to do it. We're going to make you do it.
Well,
and that would solve the
That's a
answer
good
for
reason to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to give us the
Right.
money otherwise.
Yes.
This is a great
Yeah.
reason to put the grooves in.
Yeah.
It's a very small investment.
But they usually will lean on, hey, what's the needs of the local community? Because they know it's a maintenance thing for a smaller airport. And I say smaller airport meaning not commercial service that doesn't have as big of a maintenance staff, and so it puts burden on the airports to groove their runways.
A lot of
And
jet traffic, though. Look at our ops. There's a lot of turbine traffic in our ops, and if they recommend it for that, there is a good chance that they're going to say, grooves in. I could see that.
yeah, like I said, we've done a few of them, and they've usually at y'all size airport just left up to the airport. But again, that's people are changing at the FAA too, so you never know what the next person's going to say.
Yeah, the FAA is going to be some big changes starting in January.
But we won't even approach them with it till February. That's why I say we have some time. I just wanted to give y'all a heads up, start thinking about it, and we'll talk again in January.
Any other questions, Adam? Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
I wanted to mention one more thing, and Wyman may have mentioned it. I can't remember when I was gone a few months ago. We did get the airspace analysis back on the George's hangar expansion that y'all looked at like 6 months ago or so, and it was approved by the FAA in its location at the height that was presented to y'all, even though it will be in the transitional service. As long as they put a red obstruction light on it, the FAA was okay with it. I just wanted to report that back to y'all because I know that was one of the conditions of y'all's approval of the project to begin with.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
One other thing, Wyman Has everybody got a copy of this on our butterflies?
Yeah.
You want to comment on it, Wyman? This is on the National Geographic website, as I understand it.
Well, had 5 city future events in Springdale since I've been here. During the first 4, one of the major topics was the image of Springdale. This last time, the image didn't even come up. Everybody, I think, was pretty happy with the image we've got. And I think it's pretty positive when you get your image in National Geographic.
Airport being the main focus.
It takes everybody working together to change the image of a city. Not any one person does it.
Well, and I won't say this just because he's sitting here, but thank you, Mayor, for that leadership.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that was handed to us by the city council and the mayor, and encouraged us to do this. So we didn't know anything about it until it was presented.
So it was done.
But anyway, we got it on our airport, right? Any other business?
I'd just like to ask, when we're considering it, you're going to want something for us in January about months maybe for closure. Suzanne, could you kind of review that with your operators and stuff and find out and tell us, give us what would be best from the operator's standpoint?
I'd really like to see like gallons pumped rather than just, I mean, we have operations numbers, but how much fuel you guys are actually selling, not just what you're buying. I mean, I like the buying numbers, but the selling numbers will tell us how much traffic's really coming in during each month. I don't know if you have those or not to put you on the spot. I'm not asking you for today.
Any other old business? Comments from commissioners? I think I started all off with comments from me, but I'd personally like to thank you again for providing all of us with a gift for Christmas. And again, we appreciate what you all have done for us. And anybody else?
Merry Christmas, another good year.
Good progress.
Well, thanks a bunch for showing up, and we will be adjourned.